Boys, UFC Fight Night, Kansas City, Garry versus Prates, and we had that week off of no UFC, and I'm pretty sure that we're not going to have a break like this for a little bit. We're going to have every single Saturday a fight. So that being said, we're going to go through every single fight on this card, break it down, give you guys my rare predictions on who I think is going to win and how. Starting off with an absolute stinker in the women's bantamweight division, Chelsea Chandler versus Joselyne Edwards. Now, Chelsea Chandler, the girl who, if you ever seen that, famous video of a girl running away in the octagon, that's Chelsea Chandler. And she is, a big bantamweight, and she is, fairly well-rounded. She has a strong grappling game with, decent takedown accuracy and control. She's good at utilizing her clinch work and top control to dominate her opponents, even though she's never really dominated anyone. However, her striking is bad, her striking defense even worse, and she lacks any real speed or explosive movements, and she has struggled making weight before, where Joselyne Edwards, she's also missed weight before and has struggled with the weight, but she's a good kickboxer with good accuracy and volume. She has a strong clinch game, good at controlling her opponents in, close range exchanges with pretty good cardio, and she's able to maintain a pretty high pace throughout her fights. Her takedown defense is pretty bad, and she has limited skills in wrestling and her submission defense, and at times her striking defense can be pretty bad as well. Joselyne Edwards is just better everywhere than Chelsea Chandler, and maybe Chelsea Chandler's size could be a problem and she could just Mario Batista her way to a win, but I think Edwards should get this win. 29-28 decision win. Let's keep moving down. Featherweight division. Timmy Cuamba taking on Roberto Romero. Now, Timmy is a striker with some good power for the division. Dangerous first round KO power. And, good takedown defense and the ability to do some mid-fight adjusting, which is very, very good. He has some good cardio and is able to have a high pace for all 3 rounds. And he has a pretty good reach, 71 inches, and he's good at utilizing, straight punches very effectively. He has struggled in the past with his striking accuracy and defense and is very limited on the ground and submission game, to be honest. Where Romero is a strong grappler with a forward pressure as well as having a very good amount of power for this division, and he's fairly durable. He's like a high pressure fighter and able to maintain a good pace all through rounds, but he can struggle with his striking accuracy and can be pretty inconsistent when he's fighting higher level competition. I think this fight is going to be extremely close, a very competitive fight. I don't see a finish, even though it's a possibility that I guess either one of these guys could finish each other. I don't see a finish. I think this is going to be one of the closer fights on the card. I'm going split decision for Romero, winning the first and second, dropping the third, but the second round is razor close. That's why it's going to be split decision. Let's keep moving down though. Women's strawweight division. Jaqueline Amorim taking on Polyana Viana. Now, Jaqueline is a very high level BJJ black belt with some good submission threats, decent takedowns, and power in her hands, and a very aggressive, high pressure fighting style. She's good at closing the range, and her distance control is pretty good as well. She has good fight IQ and is able to adjust mid-fight, which I always think is very important during fighting. That's one of the best, honestly, being able to adjust mid-fight is one of the, it's like a championship level quality that you could have as a fighter. However, her striking defense and just technique can be pretty limited at times, and she likes to throw these weird wide looping punches. She could definitely be countered by the right, technical striker. And as of now, she's fairly inexperienced against the top tier competition, where Viana is a BJJ grappler with a aggressive style as well, a striking style though. She has decent ground and pound, and she can be effective controlling her opponents on the mat. But, this is why I'm going to pick Jaqueline. Polyana Viana would rather be a IG baddie than dedicate her time to becoming the best fighter that she can be. Because of that, she doesn't want to be there realistically. I wouldn't be surprised if she makes more money outside the UFC doing social media stuff than in the UFC. Round 1 submission, rear naked choke for Jaqueline. Let's move down. Bantamweight division, we got Malcolm Wellmaker taking on Cameron Saaiman. It's been a minute since we've seen Cameron Saaiman, but Malcolm is a very powerful striker with good accuracy and timing. He has a fairly well-rounded set of skills, and he has solid fight IQ, good cardio. He can go all 3 rounds with a pretty heavy pressure style. And he does have some good wrestling, takedown defense, but he doesn't have the most amount of experience in like the top tier competition. And honestly, most of his wins are against like people with pretty shit records. I'm not gonna lie, but I've seen him on the Contender Series. He looked really good in his fights. He looks like a very high level prospect. I'm not gonna lie, but Cameron Saaiman is a technical striker with some explosive power. He can honestly KO just about anyone in this division, and he has some of the best leg kicks in the division as well, constantly attacking the legs in his fights. But just because he's on a 2-fight losing streak and he hasn't fought in a few years doesn't mean this man still isn't a prospect. I find it very hard to believe that after all this time off that Cameron Saaiman hasn't just gotten better, but he's practically evolved since the last time we saw him. Yes, Wellmaker could 100% go out here and knock out Cameron Saaiman, but I believe that he's just gotten better and better. Plus, Malcolm Saaiman is he's not tested at all. I'm going Cameron Saaiman, 29-28 decision win, getting it done. It's either that or he gets knocked out. I don't think Cameron Saaiman is going to be able to knock out Malcolm Wellmaker. I could see it, but I'm going decision win. Let's move down. Bantamweight division as well. Blackshear versus Alatengheili. And Blackshear is a striker with some really good speed, power, some dangerous submission skills. He is fairly durable and pretty resilient, but he does like to maintain a high pace throughout his fights, and he mixes all of his skills up together very, very well. There's some guys in the UFC who are good at a lot of things, but they can't mix it all up together, where Blackshear can mix in the striking, the wrestling, the BJJ, the kickball. Like, he can mix in every skill he has, he can mix in very well, but doesn't have a lot of knockout power, and at times he can get hit a little bit too much. As well, he has been a little bit inconsistent against the top tier competition, where Alatengheili is a technically aggressive striker with knockout power. And I say that and it sounds like an oxymoron, but he's a very aggressive yet technical striker. He does have some solid takedown defense and a solid clinch game. He is, again, fairly durable and can maintain a pretty high pace throughout his fights. However, striking accuracy isn't the best because of how aggressive he can be, and his striking defense, again, is pretty bad, as well as he can struggle against fighters with a high output. But that being said, I feel like Blackshear is literally better every single place in the fight than Alatengheili. I'm going second round submission. I think we'll see I'm gonna say Kimura second round. That would be pretty cool, but second round submission. I think on the feet, Blackshear will realize, it's a little bit dangerous to be fucking around on the feet with a guy with this much power and aggression. He'll take him down and do whatever he wants to him on the ground. Moving down, featherweight division, Chris Gutierrez taking on John Castaneda. Chris Gutierrez is one of the best leg kickers in the featherweight division. He also has some strong takedown defense and clinch control with good durability and toughness. It's decent durability, I'm not gonna lie. It's not like that great, but it's pretty decent. He does maintain a pretty high pace throughout his fights. Although he has good clinch control, he does have pretty average, maybe even below average submission attempts. He barely goes for any of them, and his ground control is pretty weak as well, with low takedown output and ground and pound strikes. He doesn't throw anything. And again, I think it has to do with this dude has a low fight IQ. He regularly does some pretty high risk exchanges because of his retarded fight IQ, where John Castaneda is a well-rounded fighter who has a good pace. He comes forward with, some pretty fast hands. He shoots for a takedown when he has the opening, but the biggest thing that this dude lacks is the power. And because of that, it makes him, not the biggest threat on the feet other than, his volume. He has a lot of volume. I don't think, the leg kicks of Chris Gutierrez is going to be that big of a problem, and I just can't trust people with such a low fight IQ. I can't trust them not to do something stupid in the 15-minute fight. I'm going John Castaneda, 29-28 decision win. Let's get into the lightweight division now. Evan Elder taking on, Guog Young. I think that's how you say it. Short notice fight for Guog Young, I believe. And Evan Elder has, some good power, some dynamic strikes, is good at mixing it up, having both submission threats and KO threats, even though, yes, he's fairly well-rounded with a high pace, high cardio, but his takedown accuracy isn't the best. He can struggle against opponents with, better grappling and wrestling skills, where Young is a explosive striker with good power, a strong clinch game, and pretty good cage control, and is really good at, in the close ranges. He's really good at being in close range. He has some good wrestling and takedown defense as well as good cardio, but just hasn't fought anyone in nearly as good as Evan Elder. And again, this is a very, very short notice fight for him. I think, Elder is better everywhere. I don't think he gets a KO here, but I think as the fight goes on, Young will be very, very tired, exhausted. Going round 3 submission after a exhausted Young. Let's go down to the flyweight division, the main event of these prelims. Matt Schnell taking on Jimmy Flick. Matt Schnell is a good striker with some strong BJJ, a high pace, aggressive style with, some decent cardio. But at this point, his chin might be the worst in the entire sport, and it's coming off a loss here where he said he was going to retire, but I guess he decided not to. Where Jimmy Flick he's a grappler with some pretty unorthodox techniques, with some really good BJJ skills and good cardio, a non-stop pace. He almost solely relies on his grappling exchanges than anything else, and I think that Matt Schnell is technically better than Flick. And, this is going to be one of the classic Battle of the Unk barbecue fights, Loser gets cut to the GFL. I think Matt Schnell is better everywhere. Yes, Jimmy Flick could land a feeler jab out here and knock out Matt Schnell, but I'm going Matt Schnell to actually knock out Jimmy Flick. Round 2. Let's get into the main card now. Ikram Aliskerov taking on Andre Muniz in the middle-weight division. Ikram is one of these Russian wrestlers, but he has some hands. Don't let it fool you. He might look like one of these classic nut-hugging Russian wrestlers, but he has some hands. He hasn't needed to wrestle much in the UFC because of his striking, and he has, that non-stop pressure game with some constant body locks, some tie-ups, good striking volume, and he has a pretty high guard, solid combinations, good power. Yes, he's coming off that KO loss to Robert Whittaker, but Robert Whittaker and Andre Muniz are not the same person, whatsoever. Muniz is a world-class Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt with some pretty good top control and pressure. He often likes to secure some dominant positions to try to set up a submission, but he has a decently strong clinch game and takedown accuracy, but he doesn't have any real power and does struggle on the feet a lot. I think Ikram's better on the ground than Andre, to be honest. I think Ikram's going to take down Andre Muniz, and we have seen if you can take down Andre Muniz, you can pretty much do whatever you want, and I think we're going to see some nasty work from Ikram Aliskerov on the ground against Andre Muniz. I think we're going to see a round 2 ground and pound TKO from Ikram Aliskerov. Nasty work. I think we're going to see Andre Muniz cut up badly too. Let's go down to welterweight though. Welterweight, we got Randy Brown taking on Nicolas Dalby. Randy Brown is one of these tall and rangy strikers with a pretty well-rounded skill set. He has good range and technical striking, some speed, a good solid clinch game. He also has a black belt in BJJ, and at times he can struggle against pressure fighters who try to disturb his rhythm, where Nicolas Dalby is a high volume striker with some pretty effective clinch work, good striking defense, and uses almost like a karate-like style with a bunch of different kicks and combinations. He has one of the strangest breathing techniques in the UFC. If you've never watched Nicolas Dalby fight, make sure you pay attention to the way this dude breathes during the fight. It's one of the weirdest techniques in the UFC, but he has cardio to go all 3 rounds. However, he doesn't have the most power in the division, and he doesn't wear damage that well. He cuts pretty easily. He bruises very easily. Also, Dalby is 40 years old. I think Randy is... he's either going to find that chin of Nicolas Dalby and he's not going to respect Dalby on the feet because he doesn't have that much power, and he's going to find that chin and knock him out, or he's just going to batter Nicolas Dalby for 3 rounds. I think he's going to find that chin. Round 2 KO for Randy Brown. Let's get into the middleweight division. Michel Pereira taking on Abus Magomedov. Now, Pereira is a highly dynamic and honestly unpredictable striker who has some skills in wrestling. You know, he's not purely a striker. He has some skills in wrestling and has some of the best like pure athleticism and explosiveness in the UFC that he uses to try to overwhelm his opponents. But as we saw in that fluffy fight, if you can weather the early storm, he doesn't have a cardio to go all fight, where Abus is a powerful and experienced kickboxer, being able to use his reach and his range control very well, with, you know, good takedown accuracy and defense, with dangerous submission skills, but he does tend to fade in the later rounds. And to be honest, this is probably, I'm going to pick Michel Pereira, but this is probably the last time I pick him if he hasn't addressed his cardio issues. You know, I think it's going to be a first round KO for Pereira, but I'm hoping it goes into the second, third, so I can see how, if he has, you know, addressed those cardio concerns, because that was a bad fight against Fluffy. But yeah, first round KO for Michel Pereira. Let's go down to featherweight now. Giga Chikadze taking on David Onama. Giga is a kickboxer / karate fighter who uses his stance switches and feints to create some striking openings. He has some sharp counter striking and is good at controlling the distance and the pace of the fight, but he does struggle against opponents who apply constant pressure and mix in wrestling, and he's been inactive for like 2 years, where David Onama is a powerful and accurate kickboxer who likes to control the pace, has good submission skills and clinch work. He is fairly limited in his experience though, only going to the decision a handful of times, and his takedown defense is okay at best, but he can struggle against a strong wrestler. But I've been saying this for a long time now. Giga is washed. Like, Giga is just completely washed. I don't think he's the same fighter that we saw against like Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar honestly just destroyed Giga. I don't think he's been the same since, and I think we're going to see that in this fight. I think we're going to see Giga 2 steps behind David Onama. I'm going 30-27 for David Onama. Let's get into this light heavyweight division. The co-main event, Anthony Smith taking on Mingyang Zhang. Do I need to break this shit down? You know, Anthony Smith, a good technical striker and grappler, but overall his skills and just wanting to be there has been on a very sharp decline over the past few years, where Zhang is a very dangerous fighter with some crazy just raw power and accuracy. He has good submission skills and has a 100% finishing rate so far. However, the big thing is he's very limited in the amount of experience he has, especially in going longer fights and just experience against high level opposition, but again, fairly unproven against top tier competition. Anthony Smith will act like he wants to be there and he's willing to die in the octagon for his final fight in the UFC, but he's going to give up. I'm going round 1 KO win for Mingyang Zhang. Let's get into this main event though. Ian Garry, Carlos Prates, welterweight division. Ian Garry is a good striker with some good accuracy, speed, combination, head movement, and footwork. He is good at managing his range and distance and fighting at his pace. He has not been, you know, the best grappler in the world, but he has been working on it. He has been improving it. He has been implementing it into his game, but it's still not his strong suit, where Carlos Prates is a very dangerous and precise striker with big time power for welterweight. He has good range control. He is very, very light on his feet with a diverse set of strikes. His takedown defense he hasn't really had to use it against any high level grapplers, so it's not very proven, but what we've seen so far, it is decent from what we've seen. His cardio, again, is also fairly unknown as well. Doesn't help that this dude is smoking it up like a chimney every single day, but I think, you know, I could see this perfectly in my head. I could see on the feet Carlos Prates stinging Ian Garry, you know, maybe rocking him a little bit. Ian Garry shoots a panicked takedown. That shit gets stuffed, and that will just be the story of the fight. I think Prates finds the chin of Ian Garry up against the cage. I'm going round 1. I don't think it'll be a flatline KO, but I'm going round 1 TKO win for Carlos Prates. And yeah, this is a pretty stacked fight card. I'm not gonna lie, I'm very excited for it. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think, and I will see you guys in my next video.